closely and extensively with other people's children. And that means that if you have car trouble, if you get ill, if something else comes up in your lives, if you're going to be as little as 15 minutes late, you need to communicate those situations with your university supervisor and with your cooperating teacher. There are serious consequences that happen when people who are in charge of other people's children aren't there when they're supposed to be. And we know that early experience is not when you take over a classroom, but for all practical purposes, you're going to be treated as a co-teacher. So please, we urge you throughout the year, particularly starting right off with early experience, please make sure you communicate as effectively and as thoroughly as possible with the individuals who are helping you make this a positive experience. And what that does mean in some cases is that you will have to do something called email, which some of us still do. And that will require that you have people's email addresses and that we have your email addresses, okay? And for the most part, we're talking about firm and email addresses, all right? So that's the pitch for communication. The second is even more important, as if there could be something more important. And in a moment, I'm going to have you take one copy of this one-page handout, because this is the official standards of conduct for South Carolina educators. I'm reading the title. It's on the South Carolina Department of Education website. We know that in your prior field experiences, you have been told about proper attire, avoiding various body art, body piercings, etc., etc. But since you are now going to be working with children and adolescents in a more intensive way, we need to remind you that there are very definitely inappropriate ways to interact with those children and adolescents. Part of this sheet explains what those interactions are. But suffice it for this afternoon, and this is a bit more relevant to secondary folks, but that does not mean that it's irrelevant to elementary folks. You are not a child's friend or an adolescent's friend. You are a professional mentor. And that means that your interactions and conduct with them has to reflect that relationship and not a relationship that involves any kind of inappropriate communication, and especially any kind of inappropriate physical contact. I'll just say this once. As teachers, as prospective teachers, all someone has to do is think it. All they have to do is suspect something is going on, and you can find yourself in some serious trouble. The other thing that I'll remind you of, and most of our Furman students are pretty good about this, I don't care what kind of security settings you have, what kinds of precautions you take, I think you ought to treat every form of social media like a postcard. And usually I'd make some joke about, you can look up a postcard on, Wikipedia or something. But all of you know what a postcard is. A postcard is something that everyone in the world can read. Except there is one difference. You can destroy a postcard. Basically, the minute you hit a send button, whether it's a tweet, a slurp, a burp, a Facebook posting, Right. It has now joined all of those missing socks that you lost in the dryer in eternity. Right. So take a copy of this. You will probably get another copy of this same handout in November because we'll stress this again. And we're absolutely confident that this will not be an issue for anyone. We'll start this on this side. And Dr. Lipscomb